Hello, happy Friday everybody. I've got some new flowers. I felt like my old one was a bit too Christmassy, so I'm getting all spring-like, and I'm back on for another live chat about building your business. So I was on a couple of days ago, I think Wednesday, talking about how now is really the best time that there's ever been, really, in terms of technology and society and, you know, everything that you can get from starting your own business. And I've been sharing a little bit of my own story and how certainly I've never been naturally entrepreneurial or in any way sort of a special case in terms of being able to do all these things. But having said that, there are a lot of challenges when starting your own business, and in particular transitioning from a corporate full-time employee role to becoming kind of CEO effectively of your own company. So that's what I want to talk about today, and three of the top challenges that I'm seeing in people I'm working with and that I experience myself when setting up your business. So my name is Anna Lundberg. I'm a success coach and business strategist, and I help people create more freedom, flexibility and fulfillment in different areas of their lives. But one of my big beliefs is that we can do this by working for ourselves, and that may be, at least initially, as sort of a side hustle alongside a full-time job, but it may also be something that you love so much and that really becomes sufficiently successful, whatever that means for you, that you can actually pursue it full-time. So if you haven't seen the videos I've been doing the last couple of days, it might be worth popping into those just to get the general context and hear a little bit about my story. I don't want to bore everybody by talking about that again, but just to say, you know, that the transition, I guess, from that corporate world, and as I said, I certainly didn't feel entrepreneurial. I didn't have a certain set of skills or anything when leaving that world to set up my own business. And, you know, I came from a marketing background and branding and business strategy and so on. And I thought, oh, this is easy. I can do all this, which is partly true. But there are certainly some areas, you know, that we haven't come across working in a big organization. And those areas are both sort of from a strategy and business standpoint in terms of how you operate in a smaller business as a solopreneur, as a small startup, but also in terms of the day-to-day of, you know, managing all your own decisions. You know, that's a huge advantage, and it's the reason why we want to do this in the first place, but it's also pretty scary and overwhelming. So, you know, that transition from full-time employee to running your own business can be pretty tricky. So I want to talk today about the three challenges, three of many, I suppose, challenges that I see, but certainly three of the big hurdles that I've been experiencing, as I said, myself, but also that I've seen in clients and hearing from people in my community over the last few months. And the first one is something that I definitely struggled with myself, and that is becoming comfortable with selling yourself. And I don't mean prostitution, although certainly it can feel that way sometimes. But the reality is that we do need to put ourselves out there. We need to sell our services or products, and that can be very unfamiliar when we come from that corporate background. If you're in a sales role, then I'm sure that you have a lot more to say about this than I do. But even so, even if you have the sales background, it's a very different thing to have a big name company behind you and to go out there and be just you, to not have all those contacts, to not be able to just organise an event and thanks to a huge name everyone's going to turn up, to not get those big celebrity names and so on that we had such fantastic access to before. So getting comfortable with selling ourselves is hugely important. Being an employee, whatever function we had before, we had a manager who, to some extent at least, told us what to do, who guided us, who we could talk to, who told us what trainings to go on and so on, and a whole team and an organisational infrastructure. And sales was then part of that mechanism, and there was a whole machine behind it. When you go out by yourself, you need to go out there and sell. And the reason why it's so important, and the reason why we need to get over it, is get over ourselves, I suppose, is that there is a reason why you want to start this business. It's not just to make money, I think. Certainly that's not the only reason, but what you want to do is to serve people. I think fundamentally you want to make a difference in the world. You want to create an impact. You want to do something meaningful. You have some kind of message or product or idea that you want to get out there. You want to help people. And the only way you're going to be able to do that is by selling. First of all, because if you don't sell, that means people aren't getting access to your amazing product or service. But secondly, if you're not making money, then you're not going to be able to continue with a business, which means that you can't continue with all these fantastic things that you've dreamt of doing. So you can't make that impact that you want to make. You can't make that meaningful difference, get your message out there. So getting comfortable with selling is absolutely vital. And as I said, it's something I've had to come to terms with, realizing that my marketing and business background doesn't necessarily lend itself to that one-on-one sales conversation. And that's okay, because there are ways in which we can learn. So I've been learning, I've been working with a business mentor in that particular area. There are courses, of course, and most of all, it comes from experience. So getting onto a lot of those calls, having those discussions, and getting comfortable with naming your price, talking about actually, driving that sale, and not just doing what feels more comfortable, maybe in my case, doing the actual sort of coaching work or advice and so on, because fundamentally, we're not going to be able to grow the business, reach more people, and ultimately make that impact we want to make if we haven't learned to sell. So that is the first challenge in terms of getting comfortable with selling yourself, your products, your services. The second one is a sense of overwhelm and getting lost in everything that's out there. And that's all the information that you can get. Unfortunately, there's almost too much free resources available in terms of, podcasts you can listen to. And my list of podcasts, to be honest, is completely out of control. And I have a couple of key people I listen to now. I've unsubscribed to a lot of emails now because I was following so many people in the first few days of my business, or months or years even. There are courses you can do. There's YouTube videos, Facebook Live. We're all getting on here and telling you how to run a business. And at the beginning, it's so good to absorb all this information, to read, to listen, to learn. But there's a point at which we need to start making choices and focus in. And one of the key challenges there that I see, and again that I've experienced myself, is trying to identify what are the 2 or 3 things that I need to be doing, both from the bigger picture perspective in terms of the next few months, how am I going to get this business off the ground, but then also specifically every day, every week, what are the actions you need to be taking consistent action, doing stuff that, is going to take time, so you won't see the results right away. So you need to know what are the things you should be focusing on, and to have that kind of choicefulness, we used to say, although that's not a real word, but making those choices, focusing and being confident that you know that you're doing the right things, if not to actually get results right away, certainly to learn and to be able to optimize in the future. So that's the second challenge. The first one is really learning how to sell yourself, but then the second one is knowing where even to focus your attention. You may have a lot of skills and experience and ideas and so on, but not knowing sort of the steps. And that's the other challenge, I suppose. There is no step-by-step formula that you can follow, whatever anyone is telling you out there, so it is very, very individual. Of course, there are things we can teach, advise, guide, and so on, and there's definitely kind of a roadmap that we would be able to work through, but the reality is there's no obvious easy path to follow, as perhaps there was in your company before. Again, thinking of being a corporate employee in terms of, first you're going to be this level of manager and then that one, and you get promotion and you move into certain roles and so on. That just doesn't exist, which is, again, a great thing. It's a challenge, but it's also fantastic because it means we can create our own path, our own career. But that is the second challenge in terms of knowing what to focus on. And then the final one, and I'm definitely a victim of this one, I suppose, or guilty of it, is trying to do everything yourself. And I know that we are all smart, capable people. You are perfectly able to do this yourself. You will, of course, find a way. You will learn. You will find a way to kind of model through and get there in the end. But the reality is that's incredibly painful. It's slow. It's so unnecessary. And partnering with someone who is a few steps ahead of you in the process, working with a team, finding friends who are going to support you, even finding an online forum. I have a Facebook group where people are in there. Just knowing there are other people out there doing the same thing, already that's a great step. joining a program, you know, that takes you through the process, has that accountability and so on, and whatever it takes for you, but to recognise that it's not a sign of weakness to say that you need help or you want help. And in fact, it's not really about needing help, it's really about wanting. It's recognising those skills gaps, for example, sales in my case in the past, or understanding where you really need to learn or get a bit more experience, and partnering with someone who is that bit ahead of you. I love the work I do now with my coach. It's been fantastic in terms of really stepping up my game. It can be quite sort of daunting sometimes when you look at someone who's quite a bit further ahead, but it's also reassuring to know that it's totally possible, and to know that you're in it for the long haul. You're building this brand and business and so on, and that there is sort of a promised land in the future as you move ahead. So knowing that someone else has done it, even though you're of course going to create your own version, reimagine success in your own definition, but knowing that there are sort of role models out there, and in fact, you know, looking for people, moving in those types of circles, meeting people, going to events and things where you can meet others, is a huge inspiration and sort of reassurance as well. But that's really the third challenge I see, that people are struggling and they're coming to me and saying, oh, I just don't know how to get started. I can't work out what I should focus on. And of course you can't, because you haven't done it before. It's a new area. It's somewhere, you know, where you're going to need to learn. And it makes me think, actually, when I started my corporate career, and I made this mistake, actually, I came into the company not knowing anything about the company, about the function, about the product, but thinking sort of part ego and part ignorance that I was somehow going to be able to deliver excellent work. And I'd like to say that I eventually did, and hopefully my boss will agree to that as well. But part of the feedback that I got early on was that I didn't ask enough questions. And that's something that we always advise now, junior managers, new hires in corporations, companies, to ask questions. There are no dumb questions if you're asking them at the beginning. What we always said to them was, okay, if you're not knowing the answers and you're asking those questions 5-6 years later, that is a problem. And likewise, as an entrepreneur, if you've gone sort of months or years into your business, into that rabbit hole, you're making all those mistakes and so on, and then you begin to realise, hang on, I don't quite know what I'm doing, or I could have done this differently. That's a lot harder to address. When you're new to something, of course you don't know how to do it. That's fine. We need to get back into that mindset of the little toddler who's sort of trying to learn to walk and falls over and gets back up again, and sort of doesn't accept help from the parents and people to help, but also, you know, for the time that they do need that help, they are open to us feeding them and looking after them and so on. So I think getting back to that kind of naivety and recognising what we don't know is absolutely crucial. So those are the three big challenges I've been seeing recently, and as I said, I've given a few examples there of how I've experienced them myself. So first of all, in terms of not being able to sell yourself and getting comfortable with that, and that is a process, it's a skill, it's coming with experience, with practice and so on. I work with somebody, you know, who couldn't even imagine the idea of proposing their services as something that they were sort of putting forward to a client, and then recently, or actually a few months ago already, she suddenly said, oh, I've charged this day rate, and it was just fantastic. It was beyond the ceiling of what she ever would have imagined. And that just comes from, again, practice, experience, and finding your people, finding the way you're going to solve someone's problem to the point that actually the money doesn't even really matter because you're providing so much value. The second one being focusing on the right things, because there are just so many things out there, and knowing which channels to use, you know, which medium suits you best. Should you be blogging? Should you be doing YouTube and Facebook Live and all these things, podcasting and so on? Within the business, you know, who's your client going to be? All these things. There's so much noise out there. So picking one or two sort of experts, ideally in a particular area where you'd like to learn, following sort of one or two people rather than, you know, listening to everything, certainly in my experience has been a huge help. And then finally, thinking that you need to go it alone, because you certainly do not. And with all that in mind, I have also been talking in the last few days about my programme, One Step Outside the 9 to 5, and it's intended to be really supporting you through this process of getting clear on what you want to do, overcoming those sort of mindset barriers and so on, very concretely, coming up with your business idea, narrowing down your different options, validating that, coming up with a business proposition, all those things like your ideal client and so on, and then going about implementing it. And that's all about sort of the mindset of the whole process, the strategy, and also taking action. But because of all these challenges that I've been talking about, I wanted to tell you, and I promised I'd do this yesterday, that there's a few new bonuses that I've added into the mix, hoping that the course is going to be all-encompassing anyway, but I know that people want to sort of hit the ground running from the start, and the programme is going to start first with sort of looking at what's important and asking all those big questions, and I know people may want to really sort of hit the ground running and go off full speed. So with that in mind, I've got 3 new bonuses that I'm adding into the mix, and of course, don't you worry, you early birders, you're going to get these as well. Make sure that everybody who's joined the programme gets them. By the way, the doors are closing on Sunday, so just a couple of days left to go now. But bonus number 1 is going to be a training that you'll get access to right away, which is about getting comfortable with selling yourself. So as I said, this is a huge barrier for so many of us coming from the corporate background, and it is something that I think is really important to address right away. It's something that needs to overcome, you know, in the early days, rather than waiting until it becomes a problem, until you're spending money and not getting any money coming in because you're just too reluctant to make that sales pitch. And I know it can feel like a sleazy second-hand salesman, but you know, it's not like that. It's about serving, and it's about, you know, delivering that value and just getting comfortable with the conversation, really connecting with people. And we can all do that even when we're shy and introverted. There are ways to just communicate even on a one-on-one basis. So that's the first one, a training on how to get comfortable with selling. And the second one is how to start building your personal brand. And again, I think that's something that people feel is very icky. Certainly I did. But the reality these days is that people buy from people and not from businesses. And it's important to start getting yourself out there in whatever way feels natural to you. So whether you like video or, you know, audio or writing or meeting people face to face, maybe speaking to big groups or speaking one-on-one, you know, we need to find the way that works for us. But the reality is we do need to establish ourselves as experts in that new area to build our credibility, to build our authority, and that takes time. I often share how, you know, I wrote an article when I quit 5 years ago, and it took, you know, a year or 2 for that to get picked up by publications. Or I'll run a webinar that then takes 6 months, 12 months to generate clients, or somebody will come and say, oh, I've been reading your stuff and watching your videos for a year and now I'm ready to buy from you. So this all takes time. So rather than wait until the end of the program or when you're sort of 2 years into your business or hoping that business is going to deliver that big income, much better to start with that from day one. So how to build your personal brand, the second training. And the third one, I talked a lot about sort of focusing on the right things and finding the time. The other day, actually, over my Facebook group, if you're there, we talked about making time to start your own business and to grow your business. And that's about carving out the space and so on. But so the third bonus is going to be a workbook that will help you to set yourself up for success during the program and beyond. So getting really clear, specific goals for the program, looking at your calendar really to see how you're going to plan out your hours doing the course, the live calls and so on, getting all that set up, and making sure that you're all going to be super clear on what it is you want to achieve and how you're going to get there. So that's what I wanted to talk about today. I'm going to be back again tomorrow with answers to some of the questions that have been coming in still. So do let me know, comment on the video if you're watching the recording here, ping me a message, whatever your chosen form of communication. The programme starts on the 16th of February. I can't believe it. It's just over a week to go, so I'm very excited to get going. And the doors are closing this Sunday already on the 11th of February. I just wanted to make sure I had everyone in there so I can kick off sort of the onboarding process and we can get started with the materials in time. But super excited about this. I really wish I had had this when I started. It's not quite the magic formula to the 6-figure business that perhaps we all hope for, but it's certainly that roadmap, a guide, that accountability partner, the support, the sort of step-by-step still guiding you through that process. And as I said, from mindset to strategy to taking action. So I'm going to put a link in the description so you can have a look at that. Do watch the other videos as well, and as ever, do get in touch if you have any questions at all. And I'd love to hear from you if there are other challenges that you're coming up against, because I'm doing these lives a lot. I'm creating all sorts of resources now over the next few weeks and months. So I'd love to hear where you're getting stuck, and then I'll pop onto a live and try to address that with you as well. So thanks so much for watching, and I hope to see you again soon. Bye for now.